Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Jake Brady, and today we got some Brothers War spoilers. Well, not today, maybe like a day or two ago. I'm a little late, but I wanted to make sure they released a lot before I got into it instead of doing one at a time. But today we're looking at the Brothers War Commander spoilers. That these cards, every single card I'm going to show you today, is going to be in one of the precons coming up November 18th. They come out right? Yeah, it's the universal release. November 18th. I'll make another video on the cards that are just going to be in the main set that you can pull from packs and all that good stuff. All right, so the first card I want to look at, March of Progress. This card says, choose target artifact creature you control. For each creature chosen this way, create a token that's a copy of it. And it has Overload for 6 colorless and a blue. Basically, what Overload's going to do, it goes from choose target artifact to choose each artifact creature you control. For each artifact creature chosen this way, create a token that's a copy of it. Wow. That. Oh, this is for sure going in. I would assume I'd probably put this in both, but it has Urza in the art. So I'm guessing it's going in there because he makes artifact creature tokens at each end step. So having 5, 6 constructs down, and you put this down, you get 10, 12. And then if you have a haste enabler, oh, you might win the turn right there. One of my favorite haste enablers in an artifact deck is probably a Chroma's Memorial because it gives it flying, trample, vigilance, haste, everything. They don't run, they don't tap. They can attack the turn they come in, and basically this could basically be a win con. Moving on to the next card, we have Tawnos, right? Tawnos, Solemn Survivor. He says, if you pay 2 colorless and tap him, you get to create a token that's a copy of up to 1 target artifact token you control, and then you mill 2 cards. So basically, you pay 2 generic mana, you tap him, and you can make another construct along with milling 2. But it's okay that you mill 2 off him because his next ability says, pay a generic and Esper, tap him, sacrifice 2 artifact tokens, and you get to exile any artifact or creature from your graveyard, and you create a token copy of it. And it's also an artifact in addition to whatever its normal types is. You can only activate it as a sorcery, which is kind of, I don't like when the cards say activate only as a sorcery, especially in an activated ability. For me, that ruined Osgear for me, my first precon. Like, I literally, when I began playing Magic, I thought I could do that ability whenever. And then one day I just read the card. Reading the card explains the card. This is what I learned. And yeah, it broke my heart, and I haven't used them since. But yeah, it helps you make artifact tokens, and then you can use them to sacrifice and get something from your graveyard. It helps with recursion because this is an artifact deck. There really isn't going to be a lot of recursion for creatures. I'm sure for artifacts there's going to be a ton. Like, I'm going to run Shroom, but if you have those creatures that help with artifact value and you can't get them back, this might be a way for you to get them back. Now this card, Machine God's Effigy. This is what it says. It costs 4 generic mana. It's an artifact. It says you may have Machine God's Effigy enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and has tap, add blue mana. Now the problem with this is it just gives people that run Shroom another piece for an infinite combo. Usually the combo works Shroom, Phyrexian Metamorph. You keep like bouncing those 2 from the graveyard, and you have something like a little burn creature like Disciple of the Vault that whenever an artifact is put into your graveyard, deal 1 damage to target opponent. So you bouncing Shroom and Phyrexian Metamorph back and forth, you're just pinging everybody. Or maybe like an Altar of the Brood, where every time an artifact hits the graveyard, it makes your opponent's mill. Something like that. Or even worse, Marionette Master, you deal damage equal to her power, which is usually 4. So, yeah, this is just another way without using Phyrexian Metamorph to go infinite with Shroom. Alright, now moving on to Wondrous. Wondrous? I'd say Wanderous, but whatever. Wanderous Crucible. This is a 7-cost artifact that says permanents you control have Ward 2, which is good. Ward is if somebody wants to target one of your permanents, they have to pay 2 generic mana. That's what that word says. And then it says, at the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards, then exile a non-land card at random from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Now, this is a nice little fun card because you have this down. You don't have a lot of graveyard recursion. This can help with that, but the problem is it's RNG. It says at random. At least it says non-land card. Like if I'm running Counterspell, that would be kind of annoying if I exiled that. But then the next turn, that's gone. That's exiled. So it's a little RNG. It's a little fun. You know, you don't know what you're going to get. I think it's a little fun card to have, and it can help with recursion. That's the biggest problem with artifacts. Like when somebody completely wipes my whole life, there's not... I can get my artifacts back, but it's a lot slower than I would want it to be. I don't know. Actually, I should probably run something like Brilliant Restoration that returns all artifacts from the graveyard or something like that. But I don't know. I thought this would be a fun card and I read it. But moving on, Blast Furnace Hellkite. This card seems really fun. Like, it's a 7 generic, 2 red for a 5/5 dragon that has Artifact Offering, which says you may cast this spell as though it had flash by sacrificing an artifact and paying the difference in mana between this and the sacrificed artifact. That already is cool. And then it has flying and double strike. And then it says creatures attacking your opponents have double strike. So if somebody swings at your opponent and they're like, oh, it's only like 6 damage or 6 or 10 damage, it's like, yeah, I'll take it. Boom, sacrifice an artifact, drop this down, double strike, they take 20. Like, that's kind of crazy. And that's a static effect. That says whenever a creature attacks your opponent. So that'll go on for the rest of the game. So people might be like obliged to keep it around. So they do extra damage. So this could be a fun card that definitely ruins the game. Moving on to Smelting Vat. It says it's a 4-drop artifact that says pay 1, tap it, sacrifice another artifact, reveal the top 8 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature artifact cards with total mana value less than or equal to the sacrificed artifacts mana value from among them onto the battlefield and the rest onto the battlefield library in any order. So basically this says tap 1, sacrifice an artifact. You look at the top 8 cards of your library, you can put up to 2 non-creature artifact cards with total mana value less than or equal to a sacrifice artifact's mana value. Now that I read this card and it's clicking in my head, it's not as great as I thought it was. Because like if I sacrifice a Soul Ring, I can only get either 2 things that cost 0, which I probably won't be running unless it's an artifact land. Or maybe like Alter the Brood or another 1-drop artifact. Yeah, I need to drop like a pretty, or sacrifice a pretty expensive artifact to actually get this going. And I don't want to do that because the expensive ones are the good ones. This is probably, would this be in, I don't know which commander deck this is going in, but it's not bad. Alright, now the last one I want to look at is Scavenged Brawler. This one is a 4/4 construct that costs 6. It has Flying, Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. And while it's in your graveyard, you can pay 5, exile it, and you can choose target creature and then put 4 1/1 counters, put a Flying counter, put a Vigilance counter, put a Trample counter, and put a Lifelink counter on that creature. And you can activate it as a sorcery. This is a pretty good card because your opponents won't see it coming. Like, you'll be in your graveyard. Let's say this is in the Urza deck. You have your construct with 10 artifacts. It's a 10/10. Doesn't have Trample. Doesn't have Vigilance. Doesn't have Flying. Anybody can block it with a 1/1. And that damage won't get through. You pay 5. You add 4 power and 4 toughness to it. You give it Flying. You give it Vigilance. You give it Trample. You give it Lifelink. Now you have a Flying, Vigilance, Trampler, Lifelinker that's 14 power and toughness. Like, that is the immediate threat. Because a couple of swings and you're already threatening some life totals. So I thought this was gonna be a fun card. I'll probably leave it in there in the deck. I don't know. Let's see, because it is a little expensive. But if I can get some cost reducers, it might not be all bad. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. If you have any suggestions in the comments, let me know. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.